Rumors whispered through dimly lit taverns spoke of a village that appeared only at twilight, shrouded in mist and time. No map marked its existence, yet travelers claimed to have found it, only to vanish without a trace. Eric, a rugged traveler with a weathered leather jacket, a heavy backpack, and piercing gray eyes, overheard the tale. Drawn by curiosity, he set out to find this mysterious village, unaware of the horrors waiting for him. The forest grew darker as Eric ventured deeper. Twisted trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches clawing at the sky. The only sound was the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant rustle of something unseen. As dusk settled, a faint glow appeared ahead. The fog parted, revealing a quaint village frozen in time, its cobblestone streets and Tudor-style houses untouched by modernity. Eric's footsteps echoed eerily as he walked through the deserted streets. The windows of every house glowed faintly, but no faces peered out. It was as if the village was watching him. A woman stepped out of the shadows, her skin pale and flawless, her emerald eyes glinting unnaturally. She introduced herself as Clara, wearing a flowing green dress that seemed untouched by time. Clara led Eric to the village square, where a stone fountain trickled eerily. She spoke of a village untouched by time, where its residents lived in harmony. Though Eric couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, he noticed something unsettling. Clara cast no shadow in the fading twilight. When he asked about it, she smiled faintly and said, "Not all shadows are ours to keep." Inside Clara's home, Eric noticed the absence of mirrors. The walls were lined with faded portraits, their subjects eerily resembling the villagers he'd seen outside. Clara explained that mirrors held memories best left forgotten. "This village has its own ways of remembering," she whispered cryptically. As night fell, Eric heard whispers seeping through the walls. The villagers' voices spoke of secrets and warnings, their tones both pleading and accusing. Unable to sleep, Eric crept outside. The village now seemed alive with shadows, twisting and shifting unnaturally. The lanterns flickered as if they were struggling to remain lit. He turned a corner and stumbled upon an old chapel. Its steeple leaned precariously, and the stained glass windows depicted unsettling scenes of villagers kneeling before a dark, robed figure. Inside the chapel, the air was thick and suffocating. A massive mural spanned the back wall, showing a pact being made between the villagers and the robed figure. Eric felt an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw a man dressed in outdated clothes, his skin pale, his eyes hollow. "You shouldn't be here," the man whispered. The man introduced himself as Edward, a villager from decades past. He revealed that the pact bound the village in time, but at a terrible cost. No one could ever leave. Edward led Eric outside, showing him a graveyard behind the chapel. Every gravestone bore the same date of death, the day the pact was sealed. As the clock struck midnight, the village seemed to awaken. Doors creaked open, and villagers emerged, silent, pale, and staring. Their movements were unnervingly synchronized. Clara appeared among them, her serene expression now twisted into something cruel. "You were meant to join us, Eric," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. Eric backed away, but the villagers began to surround him, their shadows elongating and merging to form a massive, writhing void. He tried to run, but the cobblestones beneath him seemed to shift, pulling him back toward the looming darkness. The villagers chanted in unison, their voices hollow and haunting. Just as the shadows closed around him, Edward appeared and shoved Eric toward the edge of the village. "Break the loop!" Edward shouted, his voice filled with urgency. Eric tumbled out of the mist and into the forest, the whispers and chants fading behind him. When he looked back, the village had disappeared. He made his way back to civilization, but the village haunted his dreams. He awoke every night to faint whispers and the feeling of shadows crawling across his skin. Eric began researching the village and found references to it in ancient texts. It was known as the Forgotten Village, a place lost to time, where souls were trapped for eternity. He realized that by escaping, he had disrupted the pact. The village would now begin to hunt him, seeking to restore the balance. Strange occurrences began. Shadows in his home moved on their own, and faint hymns echoed through the night. The villagers weren't done with him. One night, he woke to find Clara standing at the foot of his bed, her emerald eyes glowing. "You can't run from us, Eric," she whispered. Eric's screams were swallowed by the darkness as the villagers emerged from the shadows, dragging him back into the mist. The forgotten village always claimed its own. Weeks later, the forest where Eric disappeared grew eerily silent, as if nature itself dared not intrude. Travelers who ventured near claimed to hear faint hymns carried on the wind, and on the darkest nights, some swore they saw a glowing village through the mist, its shadows moving unnaturally, waiting for their next visitor.